20 things only those who grew up in the 1970s remember. Take a trip back to the groovy 70s, a decade bursting with unforgettable fashion, iconic toys, and legendary TV shows. From lava lamps to Saturday morning cartoons, the 70s shaped a generation like no other. Get ready to discover 20 things that only those who lived through the 70s will truly remember. Atari Pong. Before gaming consoles were a staple in every home, there was Pong, the game that kicked off the video game revolution. Released in the early 70s, Pong was as simple as it gets. Two players controlled paddle-like lines to bounce a square ball back and forth, mimicking table tennis. At the time, though, it was nothing short of revolutionary. The thrill of controlling that little dot across the screen was a brand new experience that captured the imagination of millions. Today, it might seem basic, but back then, it felt like cutting-edge technology. Pong was the spark that ignited the gaming world. Bell-bottom jeans. Bell-bottom jeans weren't just a fashion choice, they were a bold statement. With legs that hugged the knee and flared out dramatically toward the bottom, they became the defining look of the 1970s. Everywhere you looked, people were rocking bell-bottoms, often paired with platform shoes, colorful tie-dye shirts, or fringed vests. These jeans weren't just about style, they were about making a statement of individuality and rebellion against the norm. By the end of the decade, bell-bottoms had become so iconic that just a glimpse of them in a photo can instantly take you back to the 70s, evoking everything from free-spirited youth to the rock and roll era. The Easy Bake Oven. In the 1970s, there was no feeling quite like being able to bake your own little cakes and cookies with the Easy Bake Oven. It was every kid's dream come true. And the best part? It worked with just a regular light bulb to cook your treats. You'd tear open packets of cake mix, stir them up, and pop the tiny pan inside the oven, then sit back and wait, watching as the light bulb did its thing. Of course, the results weren't always the best tasting. Sometimes they were a bit interesting, but none of that mattered. The real thrill was in the process and the joy of saying, "I made this," every time you took that first bite. Scooby Snacks. Scooby Snacks became an iconic part of 1970s childhood, inspired by the popular cartoon Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? These treats, often in the form of graham crackers, captured the imagination of kids everywhere, who delighted in the idea of munching on snacks just like Scooby and Shaggy. They quickly became a quirky snack trend, with some even daring to try actual dog biscuits to see what all the fuss was about. Feathered hair. It was the look everyone wanted to rock, whether you were heading to school, work, or out with friends. That soft, swooping wave that flipped out just right became the ultimate style goal. But getting it wasn't easy. Hours spent with a blow dryer, a round brush, and more hairspray than you could count. And it wasn't just for the girls. Guys were jumping on the feathered hair bandwagon too, sporting longer locks with subtle feathering that became a major trend. The 70s were all about that breezy, effortless vibe, and Farrah's hair was the poster child for it. Tube tops. Tube tops were a defining fashion trend of the 1970s, embodying the free-spirited, bold attitude of the era. These strapless, stretchy tops were perfect for hot summer days, offering a breezy, laid-back style. With their bright colors and funky patterns, tube tops were often paired with high-waisted shorts or bell-bottoms for the ultimate retro look. While wearing one may have required a bit of confidence, they became a symbol of the decade's carefree, vibrant vibe, capturing the essence of 1970s fashion. Clackers. Clackers were one of those toys that seemed simple but were surprisingly tricky, and even a little risky. Picture this: two shiny acrylic balls on a string, and your job was to swing them up and down, making them smack together with a satisfying clack. The faster you swung, the louder the noise, and the higher the chances you'd end up with a bruised hand. Clackers were thrilling, but they were also a bit dangerous. Some places even banned them because of the injuries they caused. But for kids in the 70s, mastering the clacker was like a rite of passage, testing your patience, timing, and coordination. You'd work hard to get the rhythm right, and when you finally did, it felt like you'd conquered something big. Schoolhouse Rock. Who would have thought that learning could be so fun and catchy? Schoolhouse Rock was a staple of Saturday mornings in the 1970s, sneaking in education between all the cartoons. With songs like Conjunction Junction, What's Your Function? Teaching grammar, or 3 is a magic number, breaking down math, kids couldn't help but sing along. The best part, it didn't feel like school at all. The colorful, animated shorts were so entertaining that kids often didn't realize they were actually learning. Those tunes, they stuck with you, playing in your head long after the TV turned off. Decades later, the magic of Schoolhouse Rock is still unforgettable, and those catchy songs continue to teach lessons that kids, and even adults, will remember forever. The Electric Company. Before cable TV brought a world of educational shows into every home, the Electric Company was the go-to program for teaching kids important skills. Aimed at kids just a little older than the ones watching Sesame Street, this PBS classic brought catchy songs, hilarious skits, and, believe it or not, a young Morgan Freeman to the screen. The show made learning to read and understand grammar fun and engaging, blending humor and creativity in every episode. It wasn't just educational, it was cool. With its funky 70s vibe, the Electric Company made reading feel like a fresh, exciting adventure, loved by both kids and parents alike. CB radios. Before cell phones and the internet, CB, Citizens Band radios, were the go-to way to chat, especially while on the road. Thanks to movies like Smokey and the Bandit, CB radios became a huge part of the culture in the 1970s. Everyone had their own nickname, or handle, and you'd hear phrases like 10-4, good buddy, or breaker, breaker tossed around like they were second nature. Kids loved pretending to be truckers, while families would gather around the radio just to see who they could reach. It wasn't just about communication, it was about connecting with a community. And for a while, the CB radio was the heart of the road trip experience. Which 1970s TV show or toy brings back the most nostalgia for you? Trapper Keepers. The Trapper Keeper was every school kid's dream come true in the late 1970s. With its vibrant, eye-catching designs, Velcro closure, and clever pockets for keeping everything organized, it made kids feel like they had their whole life in order. While it really hit its peak in the 1980s, the Trapper Keeper's debut in the late 70s marked the beginning of a new era of academic organization. But it wasn't just about being practical, it became a status symbol. Having one meant you were on top of your game, and for many, it was the ultimate school supply. The Fisher-Price Chatter Telephone. The Fisher-Price Chatter Telephone was a classic toy that introduced a whole generation of toddlers to the concept of talking on the phone. With its friendly, smiling face, spinning rotary dial, and wheels that let you pull it along, this toy was everywhere in the 1970s. Even though it didn't actually make calls, kids loved pretending to chat on it, feeling like they were making important conversations just like the grown-ups. Decades later, the Chatter Telephone's cheerful, timeless design remains one of Fisher-Price's most cherished creations, reminding us of simpler times when a toy could spark hours of imaginative play. Lite-Brite. Lite-Brite was pure magic for kids in the 70s. You'd take a black sheet of paper, lay it over the Lite-Brite screen, and then insert colorful plastic pegs into the holes, watching as your creation lit up in a dazzling array of colors. Whether you followed a pre-made design or created something entirely your own, it always felt like you were crafting something special. The glowing lights were mesmerizing, and hours would slip by as you worked on your masterpiece. Of course, Stepping on those tiny pegs barefoot was an unforgettable pain, but that didn't stop us from playing for hours. Lite-Brite was a perfect combination of creativity and light, making it one of the most memorable toys of the 70s. Metal lunchboxes. In the 1970s, carrying a metal lunchbox to school was more than just a way to tote your lunch. It was a chance to show off who you were. Whether it was covered in Star Wars characters, the $6 Million Man, or your favorite band, these sturdy lunchboxes let you flaunt your personality. Inside, a matching thermos would keep your drink at the perfect temperature, and there was something about walking into the cafeteria with your favorite design that made you feel unstoppable. While these metal lunchboxes have been replaced by more practical, softer options today, they're still highly prized by collectors, reminding us of a time when lunch was a little more personal. The overhead projector. In the 1970s, the overhead projector was the star of the classroom. Teachers would write or draw on transparent sheets, and the projector would cast those images onto a screen or the chalkboard, making lessons feel bigger and more vivid. Whether it was math problems, geography maps, or science diagrams, the projected images brought the material to life, capturing students' attention. But the real excitement came when the teacher let you take the stage, step up to the projector, and write or draw on the transparency yourself. It felt like a mini moment of fame, and it made learning even more interactive and fun. Disco balls. No 70s party was truly complete without a disco ball spinning above. As it slowly rotated, it scattered sparkling light across the room, turning any space into a vibrant mini dance club. Whether you were busting moves to the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack or just enjoying the colorful reflections bouncing off the walls, the disco ball became the centerpiece of the era's nightlife. It wasn't just a decoration. It was an emblem of the fun-loving, carefree spirit that defined the 70s, making every dance floor feel alive with energy and excitement. The smell of fresh Ditto, Copie. In the 1970s, before photocopiers took over, teachers relied on Ditto machines to make copies. The fresh sheets, printed with vibrant purple ink, had a distinct chemical smell that, for some reason, kids couldn't resist. Even though we weren't supposed to inhale it, the scent became oddly comforting. When a fresh stack of Dittos landed on your desk, it meant something fun was coming. Maybe a pop quiz, a coloring activity, or a new assignment. That unmistakable smell became a quirky yet unforgettable part of school life, one that anyone who grew up in the 70s remembers with a smile. Dodgeball. Gym class in the 70s was synonymous with dodgeball. The gym would come alive with the sound of rubber balls zipping through the air as kids scrambled to dodge and throw, all while trying to avoid getting hit, especially in the face. A solid hit to the face? It stung like crazy, but it was just part of the adrenaline-pumping fun. There were no soft foam balls or safety precautions. It was all about agility, aim, and the satisfaction of taking out an opponent with a perfectly timed throw. The thrill of the game, the rush of dodging, and the satisfaction of a successful hit made dodgeball an unforgettable part of childhood in the 70s. Stretch Armstrong. Stretch Armstrong was the toy every kid wanted in the 1970s, especially for those dreaming of being a professional wrestler. This rubber action figure could be pulled, twisted, and stretched to crazy lengths without breaking. Well, most of the time. Kids would gather in groups to see just how far they could stretch him, pushing the limits of his elasticity. Occasionally, they went too far, and the mysterious goo inside would start oozing out, signaling that they'd pushed him beyond his limit. Even though Stretch Armstrong was a little fragile, his ability to bend and stretch made him a beloved symbol of 70s toy innovation, offering endless hours of fun and imagination. Waterbeds. In the 1970s, owning a waterbed was more than just a way to sleep. It was a lifestyle choice, a bold statement of coolness. Instead of traditional springs or foam, these beds were filled with water, creating a unique, floating sensation that was unlike anything people had experienced before. While they were undeniably trendy, waterbeds also had their downsides. They were heavy, hard to move, and prone to leaks, which could lead to watery disasters. But despite these challenges, waterbeds became a symbol of the era's groovy bedroom style, often paired with lava lamps, shag carpeting, and all things funky. Please comment 1 to let me know you'll be watching this video until the end. Saturday morning cartoons. Saturday mornings in the 1970s were a sacred time for kids, thanks to the golden age of cartoons. The routine was simple. Wake up early, pour yourself a bowl of sugary cereal, and settle in front of the TV for hours of animated fun. Shows like Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?, The Jetsons, and Super Friends dominated the lineup, offering a mix of mystery, futuristic fun, and superhero action. It wasn't just TV time. It was an event, a ritual that made Saturday mornings feel like magic. Parents knew better than to interrupt. This was kids' time to escape into their favorite animated worlds. Milk and glass bottles. In the 1970s, milk in glass bottles was a defining part of daily life. Delivered straight to your doorstep by the milkman or served at school, these glass bottles came with a paper or foil cap and were often reused, adding a bit of old-fashioned charm to the experience. The satisfying clink of the bottles as they were handled became a familiar sound, especially at school, where kids would sip from small glass bottles during lunch. At home, the milkman's truck was a regular fixture, making its rounds and bringing fresh milk right to your door. Earth shoes. In the 1970s, earth shoes were the must-have footwear that promised to revolutionize the way you walked. With their distinct negative heel design, where the heel was lower than the toe, they were marketed as being better for posture and offering health benefits. The look was undeniably funky, but it caught on, turning these shoes into a fashion statement. While they're not commonly seen in stores today, those who wore them recall their unique charm and the occasional backache that came with walking in them. Earth shoes might not have stood the test of time, but their quirky appeal remains a memorable part of 70s fashion. Happy Days. Happy Days was a beloved TV show that, although set in the 1950s, became one of the defining staples of the 1970s. The charming Richie Cunningham, his all-American family, and the effortlessly cool Fonzie captured the hearts of viewers. It wasn't just a show, it was a cultural sensation. From fashion trends to iconic catchphrases like, "Aye," it had a lasting influence. Happy Days became a part of everyday life, sparking a nostalgia for simpler times and even leading to spin-offs like Laverne and Shirley, further cementing its place in TV history. Big wheels. Big wheels were the epitome of 1970s childhood fun. These low-to-the-ground tricycles with oversized front wheels were the perfect ride for kids, offering speed, thrills, and the occasional dramatic spin thanks to the handbrake. Racing down sidewalks or driveways, kids felt like race car drivers, zooming through their own miniature circuits. The bright plastic design and the iconic Big Wheel logo became symbols of carefree childhood freedom. For many, the sight of a big wheel instantly evokes memories of summer days, scraped knees, and the joy of outdoor adventure. Beanbag chairs. Beanbag chairs were the ultimate symbol of 1970s laid-back comfort. These oversized, squishy sacks of fabric provided the perfect spot to lounge, watch TV, or dive into a good book. Available in vibrant psychedelic colors, they fit right into the era's bold and funky decor. Though they sometimes leaked their signature tiny beads, that only added to their charm. Whether in a living room or bedroom, a beanbag chair was a must-have for creating a cozy, casual vibe that embodied the easygoing spirit of the 70s. 8-track tapes. Midway through as the tape changed tracks. But that didn't stop 8 tracks from being the go-to music format of the 1970s. Their bulky design and occasional track skips were just part of the experience. From road trips to lazy afternoons, 8-track tapes brought music into homes and cars across the country, with iconic albums from artists like Fleetwood Mac and Elton John providing the soundtrack of the decade. Despite their flaws, they remain a nostalgic symbol of 70s music culture. What's one thing from the 70s that you think could never be replaced in today's world? Polaroid cameras. Polaroid cameras brought an entirely new level of instant gratification to photography in the 1970s. Unlike traditional cameras that required waiting for film to be developed, Polaroids let you snap a picture and watch the image appear before your eyes within moments. These bulky, boxy cameras were often seen at family gatherings, vacations, or casual hangouts, capturing the spirit of the era. The distinctive glossy prints and the excitement of seeing a photo develop in your hands made Polaroid cameras a true 1970s icon, evoking nostalgia for a simpler time of instant memories. Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Was the ultimate blend of mystery and humor, making it a Saturday morning staple for 70s kids. The gang, Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and their talking dog Scooby-Doo, traveled in the iconic Mystery Machine, solving spooky mysteries along the way. With each episode, they unmasked villains in creative disguises, all while Scooby and Shaggy shared hilarious moments. The show's quirky charm, catchy theme song, and unforgettable catchphrases like "Roo-Ro Raggy" left an enduring mark on pop culture, making it a cherished part of childhood nostalgia. Vinyl records. Vinyl records were the soundtrack of the 1970s, offering a tactile, immersive experience that modern formats can't replicate. Browsing record stores for new releases, carefully handling albums, and lowering the needle onto the spinning record became cherished rituals. The warm, rich sound of vinyl, combined with the unmistakable crackle at the start, made every listen feel special. Album covers were works of art, often larger than life, showcasing the personalities of bands like Fleetwood Mac, Led Zeppelin, and ABBA. Vinyl wasn't just about the music, it was about the entire experience. Brady Bunch. The Brady Bunch became the quintessential family sitcom of the 1970s, offering a mix of humor and wholesome life lessons. The show's premise of a blended family, with 6 kids navigating their quirky situations under the guidance of their wise housekeeper and loving yet patient parents, struck a chord with audiences. The iconic opening theme song and unforgettable moments, like Marsha's "Oh My Nose" episode, became part of pop culture. For many, the Brady Bunch wasn't just entertainment. It was a comforting, idealized vision of family life that resonated for years. Spirograph. With its set of plastic gears and colorful pens, kids could craft mesmerizing geometric patterns that seemed almost magical. The process of carefully placing the gears and watching intricate spirals form was both artistic and relaxing. Hours were spent experimenting with different designs, making it a favorite among young, aspiring artists. The Spirograph became a symbol of 70s creativity, turning simple lines into intricate works of art that could be proudly displayed. The Partridge Family. The Partridge Family became an iconic symbol of 1970s pop culture, blending family dynamics with catchy tunes. The family, led by Shirley Jones and her 5 children, traveled in their signature patchwork-painted bus, performing songs that stuck in your head for days. Most notably, "I Think I Love You." The show catapulted David Cassidy to heartthrob status, and the whole cast's wholesome yet quirky charm made it a beloved classic. The combination of music, family fun, and colorful style made the Partridge Family a defining part of the decade's entertainment. Charlie's Angels. Charlie's Angels became a defining show of the 1970s, showcasing strong, stylish women who balanced their crime-fighting skills with glamour and grace. The trio, Farrah Fawcett, Jaclyn Smith, and Kate Jackson, tackled mysteries with precision, all while setting fashion trends with their signature looks. Farrah's iconic feathered hair and the Angels' daring action scenes captured the imagination of viewers, inspiring both young girls and boys to embrace adventure and confidence. The show blended intrigue, action, and style, making it a cultural phenomenon that embodied the spirit of girl power long before it became a mainstream concept. Filmstrips. Filmstrips were a quintessential classroom experience in the 1970s, offering a visual and auditory learning method that felt cutting edge at the time. Teachers would carefully set up the projector, dim the lights, and let students watch as still images advanced with a familiar beep after each frame. Narrators would guide the story, making topics like science, history, or even hygiene come to life. For students, it was a fun break from the usual routine, and the anticipation of the next beep added a sense of excitement to the lesson. Though today's tech is far more advanced, Filmstrips remain a nostalgic symbol of educational innovation from the past. The Muppet Show. The Muppet Show was a beloved TV staple of the 1970s, blending humor, music, and zany characters in a way that captured hearts of all ages. Kermit the Frog, with his calm demeanor, tried to keep order among the chaos, while Miss Piggy's diva antics and Fozzie Bear's corny jokes kept the laughs rolling. Statler and Waldorf's constant heckling from the balcony became iconic, as did the outrageous musical numbers like Mana Mana. Each episode was a delightful blend of sketch comedy and celebrity guest appearances, making it a unique show that brought families together for a fun-filled evening of entertainment. Clocks with flip numbers. Flip clocks became a stylish symbol of the 1970s, blending function with a futuristic aesthetic. Instead of the traditional clock hands, they featured mechanical flaps that would flip over to reveal the changing time. The satisfying click as the numbers shifted made it feel almost like a mini event every minute. With their clean, modern design, flip clocks perfectly matched the era's minimalistic and sleek decor trends, becoming an iconic part of many homes and hotel rooms. The rhythmic motion of the numbers flipping was as much a sensory experience as it was a practical one. Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Rock'em Sock'em Robots were the ultimate test of speed and precision in the 1970s. With one red robot and one blue, kids would take turns controlling their fighters' punches, aiming to knock the other robot's head off its shoulders. The sound of the head springing up with each successful blow was a victory cry, and the intense matchups became a highlight of game nights. Despite its simple design, the fast-paced action and competitive thrill made Rock'em Sock'em Robots a beloved toy that still brings back nostalgic memories of childhood fun. Lava lamps. Lava lamps were the iconic centerpiece of 70s decor, adding a mesmerizing, psychedelic touch to any room. The slow, undulating motion of colorful wax blobs floating in liquid created an almost hypnotic effect, making them a perfect addition to the groovy aesthetic of the time. Often found in bedrooms or living rooms, these lamps were more than just lighting. They were a statement of cool, laid-back vibes. The soft glow and swirling wax made them a timeless symbol of the era's free-spirited and funky atmosphere. Macrame. Macrame was the quintessential 70s craft, adding a bohemian touch to every home. From hanging plant holders to elaborate wall tapestries, this intricate knotting technique became a must-have in living rooms and bedrooms. The earthy tones and textured patterns meshed perfectly with shag carpets and natural wood furniture. DIY macrame kits made it accessible for everyone, and soon, it was impossible to walk into a home without spotting a handmade wall hanging or a plant dangling from a beautifully knotted rope. Macrame was more than just decor. It was a lifestyle statement. If you grew up in the 1970s, you remember. Take a step back in time with us to the 1970s, where summer break was all about freedom, adventure, and endless fun. Picture days of exploration, fort building, and carefree moments on the playground. No schedules, just pure joy. So, slip into those bell-bottoms, hop on your banana seat bike, and let's relive the magic of a 1970s summer like never before. 1. Reliving the simple joys of summer freedom. Ah, the sweet memories of summers past. Remember when there wasn't all the fuss of graduations for every grade? It was simpler then. School ended when that final bell rang, and bam, summer had officially begun. But let's be honest, the true feeling of freedom didn't really sink in until that Monday morning rolled around, and you realized there was no school waiting for you. If your folks both worked, you were the king or queen of your own castle for the entire day. And even if your mom stayed home, she probably still sent you out the door to explore. Moms back then didn't want you glued to the couch. They wanted you out there making memories. Now, it was in your best interest to always have a plan for your day, because if you dared to utter the words, "I'm bored," your mom would magically come up with a chore list longer than your arm. Trust me, you did not want to go down that road. Those were the days of endless possibilities and the pure, unadulterated joy of summer freedom. Backyard fun. Back in the 70s, we roamed the streets in packs, like a band of merry nomads, our laughter and shouts echoing through the neighborhood. And sometimes, our adventures would lead us back to someone's house, a haven for impromptu games and backyard shenanigans. You could always tell which house was hosting the fun. It was the one with kids scattered across the lawn, their voices filled with excitement and the unmistakable sounds of a game in progress. With no adults hovering around to enforce rules or stifle our creativity, we'd transform backyards into makeshift playing fields. Frisbees or overturned ice cream bucket lids served as markers for yard lines or bases, our imaginations filling in the rest. If we were feeling particularly daring, we might even engage in a spirited game of lawn darts, a game that, in retrospect, probably wasn't the safest, but oh, the thrill of launching those weighted projectiles through the air. Those backyard gatherings were a testament to the power of improvisation and the joy of spontaneous play. We were masters of making do, turning ordinary spaces into arenas for our boundless energy and competitive spirit. Whether it was a spirited game of touch football, a chaotic baseball match with imaginary runners, or a suspenseful round of lawn darts, those backyard escapades were the stuff of summer legends. They were the moments that bonded us, creating memories that would be recounted with laughter and nostalgia for years to come. Kool-Aid and hoses. You thought I was going to say we quenched our thirst straight from the garden hose, didn't you? Well, maybe in desperate times we'd resort to that. But let's be honest, it wasn't ideal. The water was often lukewarm, and let's not even talk about the potential for a mouthful of dirt or a stray bug. The truth is, we had a much more reliable source of refreshment: Kool-Aid. That iconic red pitcher, filled with a vibrant concoction of sugar, water, and powdered flavor, was a staple in every 70s household. We envisioned the Kool-Aid Man, with his booming voice and unstoppable enthusiasm, bursting through walls to deliver our sugary salvation. But sadly, the Kool-Aid Man was a busy guy, and he couldn't always make it to our neighborhood. So, when our thirst became unbearable and the Kool-Aid pitcher was empty, we'd reluctantly turn to the garden hose. It wasn't the most glamorous solution, but it did the trick. And hey, There was a certain thrill to it, a sense of rebellion against the ordinary. We might not have had fancy water fountains or bottled drinks, but we had resourcefulness, imagination, and a whole lot of fun. And those memories of sharing a hose with friends, laughing as the water sprayed our faces, are just as refreshing and cherished today. Fireflies. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the humidity hung heavy in the air, a magical transformation would begin. On those still, windless nights, the fireflies would emerge, their tiny lights flickering like stars come down to earth. Armed with a butterfly net and a healthy dose of patience, we'd embark on our mission to capture these enchanting creatures. We'd chase them through the twilight, our nets swooping through the air, our eyes glued to their mesmerizing glow. Our goal was to create our very own bioluminescent lanterns. We'd carefully place the captured fireflies into mason jars, punching holes in the lids to provide ventilation and to allow their ethereal light to shine through. These makeshift lanterns became our companions on those warm summer nights, casting a soft, magical glow as we gathered around, sharing stories and secrets under the starry sky. There was something magical about those firefly-filled nights. They were a reminder of the beauty and wonder that existed in the natural world, a testament to the simple joys of childhood, and a source of wonder that would stay with us long after the fireflies had faded away. Please comment 1 to let me know you'll be watching this video until the end. Lawn darts and now banned toys. The 1970s were a time of carefree fun and adventure for kids, but they were also a time when safety standards for toys and activities were vastly different from what we see today. One prime example of this is the infamous lawn darts, also known as jarts. These were essentially heavy, metal-tipped darts that you threw at a target on the ground. Sounds like fun, right? Well, maybe not so much when you consider the potential for serious injury. Sadly, there were numerous reports of injuries and even deaths caused by lawn darts, leading to their eventual ban in 1988. They've become a symbol of the dangerous toys of the era, a stark reminder of how much times have changed. But lawn darts weren't the only potentially hazardous toys that 70s kids played with. Remember Clackers? Those 2 acrylic balls on a string that you'd swing and clack together. Turns out, they had a tendency to shatter on impact, sending shards of plastic flying. Then there were the early easy bake ovens, which, while fun for aspiring bakers, could also cause burns if not handled carefully. And who could forget those chemistry sets with real chemicals? We were basically amateur scientists, mixing and concocting potions with minimal supervision. Even the seemingly harmless slip and slide could pose a danger, particularly for adults, as it could cause neck injuries if used improperly. 18. Dinner and more adventures. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the neighborhood, a familiar call would echo through the streets. Dinner time. We'd reluctantly abandon our games and adventures, our stomachs rumbling in anticipation. If we were lucky, Dad would be in a grilling mood, his trusty charcoal grill sending plumes of savory smoke into the air as he relaxed with a can of Miller Lite in hand. And who knows, maybe he'd even share a sip with us. Don't tell Mom. But the day's adventures weren't over just yet. As darkness enveloped the neighborhood, we'd gather once again, a band of intrepid explorers ready for a new set of challenges. The night was our playground, the darkness, our ally. Games like Kick the Can, Flashlight Tag, and Ghost in the Graveyard transformed familiar backyards into thrilling landscapes of shadows and suspense. We'd tiptoe through the darkness, our hearts pounding in our chests, trying our best to stay hidden, to avoid being caught, to become the victor in these nocturnal games of stealth and strategy. Those summer nights were a magical time, a blend of excitement and camaraderie. We were united by the thrill of the chase, the shared secrets whispered in the dark, and the laughter that echoed through the night. As we finally retreated to our homes, our bodies tired but our spirits exhilarated, we knew that these were the memories that would shape our childhoods, the stories we'd tell for years to come, a testament to the simple joys of summer nights and the enduring power of friendship. High dive. Let's talk about the high dive, a true symbol of bravery, or maybe just recklessness, at any 70s pool. Now, climbing that towering ladder was a serious commitment. Once you ascended a few rungs, there was no turning back. You'd be trapped in a conga line of eager kids, all with the same goal of reaching the top. This meant that when you finally reached the pinnacle, you had only one option: to take the plunge. There was no way you were going to climb back down in shame, especially with your friends heckling from below. And hey, if there happened to be a cute girl watching, well, that just added fuel to the fire. The high dive was a rite of passage, a test of nerves that separated the daredevils from the cautious. The anticipation as you stood on the edge, the wind whipping through your hair, the cheering from below. It was a rush of adrenaline unlike any other. And then, the moment of truth, the leap of faith, the exhilarating freefall, the satisfying splash as you entered the cool water. It was a memory etched forever in the minds of every 70s kid who dared to conquer the high dive. Exploring. When the playground and pool lost their allure, our adventurous spirits craved new frontiers. For kids in the countryside, the world was their oyster. There were fishing holes teeming with possibilities, sprawling forests to get lost in, and even abandoned barns and houses that whispered tales of the past. And let's not forget the mini bikes and three-wheelers. These motorized marvels were our tickets to off-road adventures, zipping along dusty trails or racing alongside the railroad tracks. But even for us suburban kids, there was always a sense of exploration in the air. No matter where you lived, you could usually find a hidden gem, a small lake or pond with a rickety rope swing dangling precariously from a tree branch. It was an invitation to launch yourself into the water, a thrilling combination of fear and exhilaration. Of course, you'd probably want to keep your shoes on, just in case the bottom was littered with broken glass or other hazards. But hey, no worries. Back on your trusty bike, with the warm sun drying your clothes, you'd be home in time for dinner, your heart full of adventure, and your spirit refreshed. Those were the days of simple pleasures, of finding excitement in the everyday, of creating memories that would last a lifetime. We were explorers, adventurers, masters of our own little universes, and those summer days were ours for the taking. Saturday morning cartoons. Let's rewind the clock and journey back to a simpler time, a time when Saturday mornings were synonymous with one thing: cartoons. In the 70s, Saturday morning cartoons weren't just entertainment. They were a cultural phenomenon, a cherished ritual that shaped our childhoods and defined our weekend routines. Picture this. You wake up early, the sun barely peeking over the horizon, your heart filled with anticipation. You grab a bowl of your favorite sugary cereal. Maybe it's Cap'n Crunch, Lucky Charms, or Frankenberry, and race to the living room, plopping down in front of the TV just as the familiar theme songs begin to play. The screen explodes with a kaleidoscope of colors and animation, transporting you to the worlds of Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Inc. gang, the Justice League and Super Friends, the wacky antics of Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck in Looney Tunes, the heartwarming stories of Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, or the futuristic escapades of the Jetsons. These shows weren't just entertaining, they were educational, teaching us valuable lessons about friendship, teamwork, problem-solving, and even social issues. And because cartoons were only available on Saturday mornings, it made them even more special, a treat to be savored and anticipated all week long. Of course, no Saturday morning cartoon experience would be complete without the commercials. Remember those iconic ads for toys like Stretch Armstrong, the $6 Million Man action figures, or the Easy Bake Oven? They were cleverly designed to capture our imaginations and fuel our desire for the latest must-have playthings. And when Monday rolled around, we'd gather on the playground or in the school hallways, excitedly discussing our favorite moments from the weekend's cartoons, comparing notes on who had the coolest superhero or the funniest cartoon character. Popular TV shows. The 70s were a golden age for television, a time when families gathered around the tube to be entertained, informed, and sometimes even challenged by the shows they watched. 3 shows in particular: Happy Days, The Brady Bunch, and Charlie's Angels, not only captured the hearts of viewers, but also left an indelible mark on 70s culture. Let's start with Happy Days, a show that was already steeped in nostalgia when it premiered. Set in the idyllic 1950s and early 60s, it offered a comforting escape from the tumultuous present, reminding us of simpler times filled with sock hops, diners, and leather jackets. The Fonz, with his cool demeanor and effortless charm, became a cultural icon. His signature thumbs-up gesture and catchphrases like "Aye" entering the lexicon of everyday language. Happy Days was so successful that it spawned several spin-offs, including the equally beloved Laverne and Shirley, further cementing its place in television history. Then there was The Brady Bunch, a show that presented an idealized version of the blended family. With its catchy theme song, relatable family dynamics, and memorable catchphrases like "Marcia, Marcia, Marcia," it became a comforting presence in living rooms across America. The show's iconic 3x3 grid opening credits sequence remains instantly recognizable even today. And let's not forget Charlie's Angels, a groundbreaking show that shattered stereotypes by featuring 3 strong, independent women in lead action roles. The show launched Farrah Fawcett to superstardom, her feathered hairstyle becoming a global phenomenon and a symbol of 70s fashion. Charlie's Angels proved that women could be both glamorous and capable, paving the way for future female-led action shows. These 3 iconic shows not only reflected the cultural landscape of the 70s, but also influenced it, shaping our perceptions of family, gender roles, and even fashion trends. They offered a mix of escapism and social commentary, providing both entertainment and a window into the evolving values of the decade. Building forts. While kids today might build elaborate structures in the virtual world of Minecraft, back in the 70s, we were all about bringing our creations to life in the real world. Armed with a handsaw, a hammer, and a box of nails, we were unstoppable. Our imaginations ran wild, transforming backyards into fortresses, woods into treetop havens, and scraps of lumber into rickety go-karts. We built forts sturdy enough to withstand imaginary enemy attacks, tree houses that became our secret hideouts, and wooden go-karts that we'd proudly tow behind our bikes or send careening down neighborhood hills. These makeshift vehicles were steered with ropes tied to the front axle. And brakes? Well, brakes were for the faint of heart. Luckily, finding building materials was never an issue. The 70s was a time of booming construction, and discarded lumber was like gold to us budding builders. We'd scavenge for scraps, transforming them into our masterpieces. It was a time of hands-on creativity, problem-solving, and teamwork. We learned to measure, saw, hammer, and build, all while having a blast. Those creations might not have been perfect, but they were ours, built with sweat, determination, and a whole lot of imagination. And the sense of accomplishment we felt when we stood back and admired our handiwork? Priceless. Roller skating. The local roller rink was another summertime hotspot, a place to socialize, show off your skating skills, and maybe even find a little romance. Ours was called Apple Rollerway, a name that still evokes a wave of nostalgia. One of the highlights of any skating session was the snowball skate. The DJ would orchestrate this grand pairing ritual, sending all the boys to one end of the rink and all the girls to the other. Then, with anticipation hanging thick in the air, one group would be chosen to glide across the rink and select a partner for a slow song. The lucky couples would hold hands and skate gracefully to the music, while those who weren't chosen tried to maintain their composure. If you didn't get picked for the snowball skate, no worries. It was the perfect opportunity to grab a cheesy hot dog and an ice-cold Coke, or challenge your friends to a thrilling game of foosball. Sadly, like many cherished childhood haunts, Apple Rollerway eventually closed its doors for good back in the 80s. Which part of the content above impressed you the most? Leave your answer in the comments section. Playgrounds. Now, when it came to playgrounds, oh boy, were they different back in the 70s. We didn't have all those fancy plastic structures with their safety railings and gentle slides. Nope, our playgrounds were built tough, out of metal. They were designed for climbing, and I mean serious climbing. These structures had been around for a while, so you could always count on a healthy dose of peeling lead paint and rust that would put your Partridge Family lunchbox to shame. And let's talk about those slides. On a sunny day, those tall, straight metal slides would heat up to a scorching 140 degrees. If you dared to go down in shorts, which, let's face it, you probably were, because it was summer, you were guaranteed to get some impressive burns on your legs. But that didn't stop us. We also had the merry-go-round, a whirlwind of metal and centrifugal force. You'd grab onto the platform, and some older kids would inevitably spin it so fast you felt like you were going to be launched into orbit. And who could forget the iconic rocket ship slide? Painted in patriotic red, white, and blue, these multi-level spaceships not only fueled our imaginations, but also instilled a sense of national pride. Sadly, these awesome structures have become practically extinct. Those 70s playgrounds were a true test of courage and resilience, a far cry from the sanitized play areas of today. But they were also a source of endless fun and adventure, shaping us into the tough, resourceful adults we are today. Swimming. Ah, those sweltering summer days, when the cicadas were buzzing their symphony of heat and your tank top was plastered to your back with sweat. There was only one true escape: the swimming pool. These days, it seems like every town has its own fancy water park, with towering slides and splash pads galore. But back in the 70s, water slides were a rare treat, usually found only at tourist hotspots. And let's be honest, those slides were pretty basic. Basically just concrete trenches carved into a hillside and generously coated with, you guessed it, lead paint. For most of us 70s kids, the local community pool was our oasis in the summer heat. It was the place to be, a chance to cool off and socialize with friends. You'd inevitably bump into classmates, and maybe even spot a few cute girls you could try to impress with your killer cannonball or a well-timed splash. The pool was a hub of activity, laughter, and chlorine-scented fun. It was a simpler time, without all the bells and whistles of modern water parks. But those memories of splashing around with friends, soaking up the sun, and cooling off from the summer heat are just as refreshing and cherished today. Do you have any memorable experiences with the content I shared above? Feel free to share them with us. The emergence of video games. The 1970s were a pivotal decade, not just for culture and society, but also for the burgeoning world of video games. It was a time when the gaming industry transitioned from the dimly lit arcades to the comfort of our living rooms, forever changing the way we play and interact with technology. One of the key milestones of this era was the release of Pong in 1972, a deceptively simple game of simulated table tennis that captivated the world and became the first commercially successful video game. Pong's popularity paved the way for the home console revolution, led by the Atari 2600 in 1977. This groundbreaking console brought arcade-style gaming into our homes, sparking a frenzy of excitement and innovation. It was during this time that major gaming companies like Atari and Activision were formed, laying the foundation for the multi-billion-dollar industry we know today. The 70s also gave us some of the most iconic and influential video games of all time. Space Invaders, with its relentless alien hordes and pixelated graphics, became a global phenomenon. Asteroids, with its vector-based graphics and challenging gameplay, tested our reflexes and strategic thinking. And Adventure, a groundbreaking game for the Atari 2600, introduced us to the concept of open-world exploration and puzzle solving. But the 70s weren't just about groundbreaking technology. They were also about the social aspect of gaming. Arcades became social hubs, where friends would gather to compete for high scores and bragging rights. And with the advent of home consoles, gaming became a shared experience, with families and friends crowding around the TV to take turns navigating digital worlds and conquering virtual challenges. 11. Swimming pools. When the summer heat became unbearable, we'd find creative ways to cool off. Running through the sprinklers, shrieking with delight as the cool water sprayed our sun-kissed skin, was a classic move. Or we'd unfurl the slip and slide, transforming a patch of lawn into a slippery, exhilarating water slide. And of course, there was always the dream of taking a refreshing dip in a swimming pool. But for many of us, that dream was just that, a dream. In my neighborhood, pools were a rare sight. Instead of sparkling blue oases, we had, well, let's just say our pools were more like makeshift watering holes. Think inflatable wading pools, barely big enough to submerge your legs, or even just a large bucket filled with water. But hey, we weren't complaining. Any way to escape the scorching heat was a welcome relief. And speaking of relief, when our throats were parched from all that outdoor fun, there was only one solution: the iconic red and white cooler filled with ice-cold drinks. Whether it was Kool-Aid, lemonade, or a sugary soda, those frosty beverages were the perfect antidote to a sweltering summer day. We might not have had fancy pools or elaborate water parks, but we had resourcefulness, resilience, and a whole lot of fun. And those simple pleasures, like a refreshing drink on a hot day or a splash in a makeshift pool, were just as satisfying, creating memories that would last a lifetime. Playing with friends. Back in the 70s, making friends was a whole different ballgame. Forget about cell phones and pre-arranged playdates. We were masters of independent socializing. We had to be resourceful and brave, knocking on doors and hoping for a friendly face on the other side. "Can Adam come out and play?" was our go-to phrase, fingers crossed that the answer would be a resounding yes. If not, no worries, we'd simply move on to the next house, determined to find a playmate. And if no one in the neighborhood was available, we'd head to the trusty kitchen phone, tethered to the wall by its curly cord, and dial up our buddies. It was a time of face-to-face interactions and genuine connections, building friendships that often lasted a lifetime. Bikes. Once you rounded up your crew, the next step was transportation. And no, we weren't calling Ubers or waiting for Mom to drive us around. Our trusty steeds, our bicycles, were always at the ready, usually leaning against the garage wall. Or, if we'd had a particularly adventurous day, still sprawled out in the yard from our last escapade. These days, kids might consider their smartphones, gaming consoles, or unfortunately, even medication as their most prized possessions. But for us 70s kids, nothing was more vital than our bikes. They were our passport to freedom, our chariots of exploration. We could zip over to a friend's house, discover hidden corners of our neighborhood, or embark on epic adventures, all without relying on our parents for a lift. With those sky-high handlebars and banana seats, our bikes could take us as far as our little legs could pedal. Sure, the Schwinn Stingray was the ultimate status symbol, the king of banana seat bikes. But for those of us whose parents weren't exactly rolling in dough, a trusty Huffy from Kmart or a Free Spirit from Sears did the job just fine. And believe me, those Huffies and Free Spirits saw some serious mileage over the course of a long, glorious 70s summer. They were our faithful companions, taking us on countless journeys and helping us create memories that would last a lifetime. 4. Did I miss any of your favorite 70s memories? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, check out more videos in the series. Don't forget to subscribe and share Who Remembers with your friends who grew up in the 70s. Thanks for watching, and stay groovy.